Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the messengers in our home. Tonight we're going to talk about Chapter 42, the word in a rural setting. But before we get there, I would like to share one more feedback from you, this time from Carlos. I learned more about the process of self-compassion and love and the state of consciousness that we carry from our life to the spiritual realm after we discarnate. Also, it was very important to make me understand how our conscious influence what happens to us in the umbral, and how we are responsible for finding our way to help and to be rescued for treatment, and to have our healing processes initiated as we recognize our state where we are and why, and we care deeply to really acknowledge our recent errors and bad choices we have made. It became more clear to me how we regain plenty and deep conscious of our real spiritual being as we have compassion for ourselves and acknowledge our failures and acts of the soul. Thanks. Thank you, Carlos. So this was the feedback from Carlos about the book No Solar. We're now working with the messengers. So we're very keen on receiving your feedback about what has been changing for you during those weeks of studying these chapters of the book together. So please email us at kardecradio@gmail.com. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hi, Francisca. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another chapter of the messengers in our home.
And as usual, before we start, we'd like to invite you for our opening prayer. Taking a deep breath in and a long breath out, so that we can focus our attention, our thoughts to the higher spheres, connecting to God, our Creator. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe and of our yet small hearts, we are united in your name once more to learn more about the laws that guide us in our lives. Your divine laws that help us understand the universe and our lives better and bring us closer to you as our Creator. We thank you for the gift of life, for the many blessings we receive every day, the opportunities to learn and to grow, and the wonderful tools we have to learn more about life in the spiritual realm. And so we ask you to please help us, that the letters and the book of the messengers and all the other great spiritual books that are around become alive in our hearts, so that we start to practice what we read, get inspired and motivated to make the change in ourselves for the better each and every moment. And we thank you for the help, the good spirits that are always there for us to soothe our pain, to uplift our spirits in times of trouble. And we just need to call for them. We just need to pray or think of them, ask for help, and it will come. So we thank you for inspiration, for accompanying us during these programs, and for inspiring our thoughts, so that we become a living example of God's goodness on earth. And with your permission, we would now like to start our meeting. disobedience. So let us now listen to the reading of chapter 42. Enjoy.
Chapter 42. The Word in a Rural Setting. Now that the explanation regarding the unpleasant incident had ended, the hierarchical superior of that large team of spirit workers asked our guide, "Aniceto, we would like to make the most of your presence. Would you mind giving us a scripture lesson now that the day is almost over?" Aniceto readily agreed. I noticed that everyone was very much interested. I was greatly surprised to see the farm workers bring our esteemed mentor a book, which I had no trouble identifying. It was a copy of the New Testament. Aniceto opened it confidently, as if he knew exactly where to find the appropriate message. He gazed at the page he had chosen and began to meditate. A sublime light began to halo his head. There was profound silence as all the co-workers showed great anticipation for what Aniceto would say to them. Everything in nature seemed majestic and peaceful. A herd of cattle had approached us, attracted by magnetic energies beyond my understanding. Even a few humble mules had arrived from afar, and the birds had settled down in the dense foliage without making a peep. The only sound to be heard was the light, soft voice of the wind whispering harmony and freshness. Dressed in the liquid gold of the sunset, the landscape could not have been more beautiful. Except for the natural rusticity of our colorful surroundings, the setting brought back fond memories of the green halls of No Solar. Aniceto gazed intently at a passage in the sacred book and read aloud Romans chapter 8, verses 19 to 21. For the creation earnestly waits in expectation for the manifestation of the children of God. For the creature became subject to pride, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hopes that the creation itself shall also be delivered from the bondage of corruption and brought into the glorious liberty of the children of God. He then reflected for a few instants, and then began with noticeable inspiration. Brothers and sisters, let us receive the blessing of the countryside, praising the love and wisdom of our Father. Let us extol the Supreme Spirit of life, which breathes into us the eternal power of unending renewal. Let us ponder these words of the Apostle to the Gentiles in order to grasp their divine content. Nature has been waiting for millennia for humans to begin to comprehend. It has not been nourished with hope alone, however. It has been living in ardent expectation, waiting for the understanding and help of spirits incarnating on earth, that is, the children of God. Meanwhile, the forces of nature continue to suffer the oppression of human pride. However, my friends, this occurs because the Lord also holds out hope for the deliverance of beings enslaved on earth, so that freedom in the glory of men and women may also occur. I know your sacrifices intimately, you selfless spirit workers on earthly soil. As is the case in many other areas of the planet, many of you have remained here in order to help your incarnate fellow spirits who are chained to the illusion of material gain. How many times has your help been converted into exploitation in the realm of earthly matters? Most of Earth's caretakers demand everything but offer nothing in return. While you carefully oversee the maintenance of the fundamentals of life, you have seen civilization acting like a powerful threshing machine. You have seen men and women, our brothers and sisters, turning themselves into little Molochs of bread, meat, and wine, completely immersed in vices of the sentiments and excesses of food, unconcerned about their huge debt to nature, so loving and generous. They oppress the creatures of the lower kingdoms, harm the beneficial energies of life, show ingratitude for the sources of the good, and mine their rural industries more out of pride and ambition for gain than out of the spirit of love and usefulness. They are nothing more than the unfortunate servants of harried passions. They draw up deceitful plans to gain riches that lead them to their ruin. They write treatises on economic policies that result in destructive wars. They develop commerce for unfair gain, reaping international turmoil leading to poverty. They dominate the weak and exploit them, but they themselves awaken soon afterward amongst monsters of hatred. It is to them, our incarnate friends, that we must turn our attention with a spirit of tolerance and fraternity. Let us continue to help them now and forever. Let us not forget that the Lord holds out hope for their future. Let us listen to the cries of creation as it pleads for the light of human reason, but also let us not forget the tears of these slaves to corruption, among whose ranks we ourselves were members until yesterday, helping them to awaken to divine consciousness for life eternal. Even though they are encircled by their pride and insolence, we will continue to help them nonetheless. The Lord grants an increase in evolutionary progress to self-sacrificing souls. He will not forget the productive tree or the slaughtered animal, the humble being that is consumed for the benefit of another. As for us, let us work to awaken our brothers and sisters concerning our debt to Mother Nature. Whenever we return to reincarnate, surrounding ourselves in the fluids of the physical realm, we always exaggerate our intake of nitrogen. We convert into a worldwide tragedy what might otherwise comprise a serene and edifying pursuit. As we know, no organism on earth can live without nitrogen, and although humans move within an ocean of it, inhaling an average of 1,000 liters per day, they, like all other living beings on the planet, cannot assimilate the nitrogen in the air. Unlike ordinary oxygen, for the time being, the Lord does not allow for the creation of cells in the living organisms of our world that have the ability to spontaneously absorb this extremely important life-sustaining element. Only plants, those untiring workers of the planet, can draw it from the soil, thereby securing it to enhance the lives of other beings. Each grain of wheat is a nitrogenated blessing for sustaining living beings. Each piece of fruit from the earth is a container of sugar and albumin full of the nitrogen indispensable to the organic balance of living beings. In essence, all the farming and ranching industries represent nothing more than the organized and methodical pursuit of this precious element of life. If humans could only utilize approximately 10 grams of the 1,000 liters of nitrogen they breathe daily, the earth would be transformed into a truly spiritual paradise. But if the Lord has given us much, it is reasonable for Him to demand the collaboration of our own efforts in constructing our happiness. Even in O Solar, we are still far from the great ability to nourish ourselves spontaneously and completely with atmospheric energies. Moreover, my friends, humans have transformed the quest for nitrogen into an activity of frenzied passion, hurting and being hurt, offending and being offended, enslaving and becoming slaves, segregated in dense darkness. Let us help them to understand in order to implement a new age. Let us help them to love the earth instead of wantonly exploiting it, and to value the work of animals without slaughtering them. When that finally comes to pass, the slaughterhouse will be converted into a place of cooperation where people will help lower beings, and where these, in turn, will meet the needs of humans, and trees will live amidst the respect that is due to them. In that sublime era, industry will glorify the good. Perceiving our understanding, goodwill, and veneration for the divine laws, the Lord will, at least in part, offer us a solution to the technical problem of securing the atmosphere's nitrogen. Let us teach our brothers and sisters that life is not to be comprised of incessant robbery, where plants are made to damage the soil, where animals exterminate plants, and where people murder animals. Rather, life is an activity of divine sharing and generous cooperation, and we cannot disrupt it without causing serious damage to our own position as responsible and evolved creatures. Let us not condemn. Let us always be of use. We were all deeply impressed. Aniceto fell silent and sympathetically watched the nearby animals and birds as if he was sending deep thoughts of love to them. Then he closed the holy book with these words. We notice in Paul's letter that the creation anxiously awaits the cooperation of the incarnate children of God. We agree that the creatures of the lower kingdoms have borne the weight of great iniquities. Let us continue to help them, but let us not get lost in vain contentions. Humans are waiting for our spiritual manifestation also. In this way, let us help everyone in the chapter of great understanding. And tonight we're talking about chapter 42, the word in a rural setting. I just want to make something very clear here, that the name of this chapter is very interesting. Well, I say this from time to time, but in this specific case, this word, it comes in capital. And the name of this chapter in Portuguese, it referred to the idea of we gathering together and doing what we call in Spiritism the gospel at home, or as we call it here at Kardec Radio, God at home, which is, I'm pretty sure you all know, it is a gathering where we sit together, or we are together to read a passage from a book and then to have a discussion about it. We already have an example here when Andre Vicente and Aniceto and that group of spirits arrived at Dona Isabel's house, and then she and her daughters and her son, they all sat together to discuss parts of their day and news that one of them gathered, and a specific passage from a book. So the title of this chapter, although we hear the word in a rural setting, it means that these spirits are together to talk about, in this specific case here, a passage from one of the letters that Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, wrote to the Romans. And that's what the title of the chapter is, because a person can, read the title and says the word in a rural setting and will not understand very clearly what it is. But naturally, by the description of what is going on, we can feel and we can see that Aniceto is there together with a lot of those spirits around, and he takes this passage from the New Testament, and then talk about it and discuss about it and explain, right, what that passage is about. So it's in the format of a God at home meeting or a gospel at home. So that's the first thing that I'd like to point out in the beginning of the chapter. And naturally, as we remind ourselves of what was happening last week, or, well, not necessarily last week, but on the last chapter that we read and that we discussed, which was chapter 41, we all heard and discussed a little bit this story about that man. One of the stories on that chapter, for that matter, was the story of the man who was treating very badly his animal companion, or the animal who was helping him with his work, but he treated this animal so bad, and that there was this time when the animal couldn't take it anymore and then just hit the man on the head, and he was he suffered some traumatism in his head, and the spirits were trying to help. There were those two guys who were trying to help, and unfortunately, as we discovered, he would be suffering for a long time. But the main thing about last chapter was, it all has consequences, right? Violence only generates violence, and unfortunately, he could not treat, or he was not able, he wouldn't do it well, right? Treating the animal, treating his animal, right, and treating nature. And in this chapter, we go along and we follow this same footstep. Of course, it's not more about that man, but it's nevertheless, it's another lesson on or about nature and about how we humans are responsible for the nature that surrounds us, for what happens around us. So, as Andre starts the chapter, right, he says that man, that superior, that hierarchical superior to that man, to that spirit, right, who was taking care of that area, he looked at Aniceto, and specifically by name, he says, "Aniceto, we would like to make the most of your presence. Would you mind giving us a scripture lesson now that the day is almost over?" So, as we can clearly see, right, maybe they already presented themselves at that specific moment, but by what we can understand, this is not the first time that Aniceto is around, and those spirits around probably already know him, and this one as well. So he comes by name and asks Aniceto to do this talk about the scripture, to which Aniceto completely and readily agrees, and opens up the Bible, or the New Testament, that's brought to him. And it's interesting because Andre describes this, well, I see the book and I immediately see what the book is. And he says it's the New Testament, to which Aniceto goes on, opens the book, and he finds the passage that he was actually looking for. And Andre, while Aniceto is doing this, starts to describe what's going on around. And he says that Aniceto looks at the passage, looks at the book, chooses what he wants, and begins to meditate on that specific topic. And then Andre describes something that, as we've been talking about, he is developing more and more his, we could call it his spiritual vision. Most likely, Vicente is doing the same, is developing his own personal spiritual vision as well. So now he looks at Aniceto and he sees, right, this sublime light beginning to halo in his head, meaning that he is probably being influenced, he's being helped by other good spirits, and he's opening up, right? Maybe as he uses the word here, meditate, this word can mean so many things, and one of them, naturally, if you're really trying to reconnect with yourself and you're really trying to connect with your own conscience, that's where the laws of God are written. So if we're trying to connect to that, it is natural that I will be able to connect to good spirits as well, and will be influenced by them. So it is nothing more than natural that we would be able, if we had the capability, to see what Andre was seeing here. And then there was this profound silence. Andre describes how majestic nature is around. Now we see some cattle around, see some birds. Here's the wind going back and forth, whispering harmony and freshness. And then he sees the sunset, the colors of the sky, and he compares this serenity of this environment to the green hall, or the green halls that he visited while he was living in no solar. And if you want to, you can always go back, as we keep saying here, repeating from time to time. You can always go back to the book No Solar and discover a little bit more about these green halls, to which Minister Veneranda has a lot to do with it. So Aniceto then gets the book, and now Andre is describing, and reads this passage from the book of Romans, which was a letter that Paul wrote to the Romans. And he takes this small passage to 3 verses from chapter 8 of the Romans, verses 19 to 21, to which I'm going to read because I think it's important for us to reread it again so that we have these words in our head. And Aniceto reads, "For the creation earnestly waits in expectation for the manifestation of the children of God. For the creature became subject to pride, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hopes that the creation itself shall also be delivered from the bondage of corruption and brought into the glorious liberty of the children of God." So this is what Paul was writing, part of what Paul was writing to the Romans. And Aniceto starts giving us a lesson about this very specific topic. And he starts by naturally doing an opening, which is almost like a prayer, because he is thankful for what's going on, and he praises God, praises the love and wisdom of our Father. He says, "Let us extol the Supreme Spirit of life, which breathes into us the eternal power of unending renewal," the circle of life, right? And as the description of the Old Testament, when God breathed into the nostrils, right, of that, I would say, that model that was used in the metaphor of the Bible, of the Genesis, for the creation of human beings. And when he breathed into, right, he gave life to that lifeless form. And that's what probably Aniceto is referring to here, just for us to understand that he is completely connected to the laws of life eternal, right? That it doesn't matter if it's a metaphor or not, but we can, if God gave us life, what form, how it did, it really doesn't matter that much. The idea is that we have life, though, and someone to which we call God gave this life to us, gave the opportunity of us to live. And that's how he describes it here. This Spirit of life breathes into us the eternal power of unending renewal by renewing ourselves through reincarnation, right, through waking up and going to sleep, through eating, and all the cycles that we need to go through so that life can keep going on. And then he says, well, let's then ponder on what Paul was saying so that we can extract from this idea, from what he was saying, the main idea, to grasp the divine content of what he was saying. And then he starts describing, he starts discussing with us what he wants us to see in that specific passage. And then he says, that nature has been waiting for us to begin to comprehend, but has not been waiting for us for 10 years, for the past 50 years, for the past 100 years. No, he says nature has been waiting for millennia, right, for more than thousands and thousands of years. He puts it in a plural here, so it's more than one millennium. It's thousands and thousands of years for us to understand the power of nature and what we need to do to help. And nature has been has not hoped alone, has not used of just hope. Nature has been living in ardent expectation. So I'd like to point out here probably a subtle difference, but a very, very important difference between what he says. It has not been nourished with hope alone. It has been living in ardent expectation. What is this difference here? This difference is that sometimes the idea of hope, it comes with that idea that we stand still and wait for something to happen. which is different than when we really think of hope, as Paul himself says in a different passage of one of his other letters, when he says that these three stand, hope, right? And then he uses the word hope. So the idea of hope that Paul uses is the idea that we are not only waiting, we are doing something because we hope that it will happen. So we are actively doing something. And so that we don't get too, we don't, how can I say this? So that we don't mix the concepts, we don't mix the ideas. Aniceto uses here the expression ardent expectation. So it means that we are expecting, that we are really active. We are trying and trying to push it forward, trying to really do something so that thing that we are hoping to happen, that it will happen. Maybe it will take some time to happen, but what nature is expecting from us is that we act, and nature tries to push us forward, to go and to learn, and to so that we can do what we really need to do, to learn and to help nature to fulfill its own duty, right? And unfortunately, all this time, what's been happening to nature is that nature continues to suffer the oppression of human pride. And naturally, Aniceto describes a lot of the things that we do to nature. But one thing that I find very, very interesting about this chapter is that although Aniceto is talking about nature, he is not only talking about nature, he is also talking about us and our relationship to nature. As we keep saying when we are discussing all these chapters and all these teachings, we have to remember that these teachings are not for the others. These teachings are for us, right? So if we can clearly see that nature is being oppressed, the question to ourselves is, are we, or am I, oppressing nature in some way? How am I helping to oppress nature, right? How is my pride helping to oppress nature, to oppress the forces of nature? That's a good question for all of us right there. And why am I saying that Aniceto is also talking about ourselves? It's because, well, remember, he is gathering with a group of spirits there who were expecting his talk, right? His impressions on that specific topic. And then he comes and talks directly to them. And he says that he knows that these spirits sacrifice themselves to help. And that happens everywhere. But why do they do this? They do this to help us who are incarnated to do the best that we can do. But how many times, and then that's a direct quote from the text here, how many times has your help been converted into exploitation in the realm of earthly matters? Most of Earth's caretakers demand everything but offer nothing in return. He's saying, okay, I know that you're doing your job, and he's talking to those spirits, and maybe at this moment he's talking to us, and that's one great reflection. Are we doing what we can? But he goes on, right? So I know that you're doing, I know that you're sacrificing, but unfortunately we also know that some of your help, the spirits or the humans, the incarnate humans who are receiving your help, unfortunately don't use it. Don't use this help to really improve. They demand your help, they demand everything, but offer nothing in return. And unfortunately, we look at this powerhouse of human machinery, of what we can do, and we see how destructive we can be. And he says, you have seen civilization acting like a powerful threshing machine. It's a thresher. It's a machine that gets the grains and then separate the part of the grain that we can use to the part that we usually don't use. Right? And then it destroys everything and takes only one small piece of it. And throws away a lot of the things that maybe we could be also using. And he goes on, he says, you have seen men and women, our brothers and sisters, turning themselves into little Molochs of bread, meat, and wine, completely immersed in vices of the sentiments and excesses of food. These Molochs that he is referring to here, Moloch was a deity in 3,000, 4,000 years ago that a specific group of people believed in. And this form of God, right, when they believed in lots of different gods, this one wanted to sacrifice. And this term Moloch is used when you only want, when what you need, what you want for yourself destroys everything else. So it requires a sacrifice from the ones who are below you so that you can survive. It's more or less this idea. So it's like a parasite. We could use the word parasite. So it's this idea that we, as a species or as a group of people, unfortunately, the ones who have this pride, right? This idea of or selfishness that I want everything for myself, and then everybody else can suffer so that I am better, so that I can have the best. That's what he says, Molochs of bread, meat, and wine. So I want all the bread, all the meat, and all the wine for me. And let's remember, bread comes from wheat or other types of rye. Meat, that comes from animals naturally. And wine, which also comes from fruits. So what he is saying here is we are using all the natural resources for ourselves, right? To continue healthy or to become healthy. And he is not complaining, and that's one point that I'd like to make here. He is not, and he will make this clear at close to the end of the chapter. So he is not saying that we should not be using these. That's not what he's saying. Look, he's saying little Molochs of bread, meat, and wine. So what he's saying, he's talking about the abuse. And that's what he is saying. We want everything for ourselves, and we don't think about the other. It's just for us. It's always me in the first place. And that's why he continues, and he says, completely immersed in vices of the sentiments and excesses of food, unconcerned about their huge debt to nature, so loving and generous. So we already have a debt to nature, right? That's where we take our food from. That's where we take our water from, right? And that's why we should be so thankful. But we, instead of helping nature, we do the opposite, right? We destroy nature. Hopefully, not all of us, but we can clearly see that some of us are doing a lot to not to help and, unfortunately, to destroy more than help. And he goes on, and they oppress, right, these people, and hopefully, again, not us, but they oppress the creatures of the lower kingdoms, harm the beneficial energies of life, showing gratitude for the sources of the good, and mind their rural industries more out of pride and ambition for gain than out of the spirit of love and usefulness. Right? So he even gives us two options, right? It can be in the spirit of love, but not only love, it can also be in the spirit of usefulness, right? So if we balance, we could do something different. But no, we, unfortunately, are nothing more than unfortunate servants of Herod passions. We draw up deceitful plans to gain riches that will lead us to our ruin. We write treatises on economic policies that result in destructive wars. We develop commerce for unfair gain, reaping international turmoil, leading to poverty. We dominate the weak and exploit them. But we, ourselves, will awake soon afterward amongst monsters of hatred, because we are destroying other people's lives. We are gathering and gathering and gathering, and if I want money, I want more money, and if I want to buy a house, I want to buy a second house, and if I want to have a place, no, I want to have 2 places or 3 places. If I have $1 million, I want to have 2 million, and then 3 million. And there's nothing wrong with having 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 200 million. Nothing wrong. The question is, how am I getting these millions, and what am I using these millions with or for? What is this money doing in my hands? Am I helping other people? Am I really, really striving to use this money, to use this power to help? Or is it just for pride, for gain, and for the destruction, and with the destruction of others, and with the destruction of these very large powers of nature? And it is to them, Aniceto goes on and says, it is to them, our incarnate friends, that we must turn our attention with a spirit of tolerance and fraternity. So what is interesting about this talk here is that Aniceto is pointing out that we are doing something wrong. But this is not for us to keep criticizing and stop working to improve. It's the other way around. Let us continue to help them now, but not only now and forever. Let's not forget that the Lord holds out hope for their future. If God didn't have hope in ourselves, we wouldn't be here. So who am I if God has hope in us, has hope in those who are doing the wrong things or who are doing harm to nature, harm to the environment, harm to other people? If God trusts them, if God gives them hope, who would be us, right, if we didn't do the same? Let us do something. Let us listen to the cries of creation, of nature, right, as it pleads for the light of human reason. But also, let us not forget the tears of these slaves to corruption. And then he gives us this mini lesson here, among whose ranks we ourselves were members until yesterday, until not very long time ago. Who are these slaves to corruption? We, or in this case here, they, right? These groups of people who are unfortunately getting richer and richer and richer by, unfortunately, using earth, using nature, using other people's lives, using animals' lives, using trees, using forests, to gain, destroy, because I want more. And what Aniceto, the mini lesson here, says is, look, we are looking at those people, and if we are not one of those, let's remember that we were amongst one of those until yesterday, until not very too long ago, right? So let's not criticize, let's not condemn, let's help, let's keep doing what we can to help. And he says, right, helping them to awaken to divine consciousness for life eternal, because we know that we won't die, that the earth that I live here, the way and the stage that I leave earth here, when I come back, I will get earth and it will be part of my responsibility of what I did, what I do today when I get Earth, when I come back, when I reincarnate again on Earth. And what I'm getting now is part of what I did when I was incarnated a few years ago, or some years ago, like he says here, yesterday. Let's continue, he says, to help them nonetheless, even though they are encircled by pride and insolence. Another question for us. Are we encircled by our pride and insolence? Are we still among this rank, or these ranks, of people who are still enslaved to corruption, to our own corruption? Or are we the ones who are really and actively trying to help make this place a better place, not only for me, but for everyone, by improving myself, improving where I live for everybody else to live? But he goes on. Aniceto says, the Lord grants an increase in evolutionary progress to self-sacrificing souls. So, he will not forget the productive tree or the slaughtered animal, the humble being that is consumed for the benefit of another. God will not forget them. They are allowing, nature is allowing us to do this. But let's work to awaken our brothers and sisters concerning our debt to Mother Nature. We will come back to Earth, like I was saying before. And now he starts to talk about something that's very different. And I bet that in the 1940s, it was even more different, or even more far away from what we know now, or at least for the concern of a regular person. He says, when we come back, when we reincarnate, we need food, we need air, we need water, we need to survive in the material realm. One of the things that's completely necessary for us to live here on Earth, amongst other basic elements, is nitrogen. We need nitrogen, right? Our DNA has nitrogen in it. The amino acids that we have in our body, that we consume, have nitrogen in it. For life to form, it needs to have nitrogen, right? Our DNA has it. What Aniceto is inviting us to think here, and although I had not researched this, I'm not sure, positive of how long this research on nitrogen has been happening. What Aniceto is inviting us to think about here is that one of the things that's more important for us, other than oxygen that we know that we need to use to survive, is this nitrogen. The problem is that we are not using nitrogen in a good form, in a way that is sustainable. And it is very interesting because in a very, 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 very brief research that I made, and I highly recommend you to go ahead and do a research as well. I found this website that's from the University of Virginia here in the United States. This website is www.n-print.org, which we would read www.nprint.org. But it's N of nitrogen. It's N is the nitrogen, the symbol for nitrogen in the periodic table, right? In the chemistry, the periodic table of chemistry, right? And nprint.org. And in this website, this group discusses and does research on the importance of how badly we are using nitrogen in our lives, and what's the impact of this nitrogen that we are producing to produce more food for ourselves. And I'll read it what Aniceto said in 1944-45 here in this book. He says, "We always exaggerate our intake of nitrogen. We convert into a worldwide tragedy what might otherwise comprise a serene and edifying pursuit. We are, as of right now, producing more forms of dangerous nitrogen, reactive nitrogen, as we can read on this website, than we ever did to produce more food." And it is very interesting that Aniceto is already talking about this a while ago. And up to this day, we don't know how to do it, or we are not aware, not thinking about changing some of the forms of production that we have. Well, I'm exaggerating here. Naturally, there are lots of people researching better ways of doing stuff, and we see this from time to time. But maybe this is something that we should be more worried about if we are prone and we like this area of agriculture, of research on food, and so on and so forth. And what Aniceto says here, which goes a little bit further than just the material side of it, is that it is because God doesn't want us. God wants us to be limited so that we can learn, we can grow, we can research ourselves so that we can learn how to improve this intake, and we can help improve nature. That's basically what Aniceto is saying here with showing us this different perspective, right? He says, for example, unlike ordinary oxygen, for the time being, the Lord does not allow for the creation of cells in the living organisms of our world that have the ability to spontaneously absorb these extremely important life-sustaining elements. So it is a design of God that we don't have this ability. Who are the elements that can use nitrogen and give this much needed nitrogen to ourselves? The plants, to which Aniceto calls those untiring workers of the planet. And then in each grain of wheat we have the nitrogen that we need. Each piece of fruit from the earth is a blessing, right? Is a container of sugar and albumin that is much needed and necessary for ourselves. One day, we will be able to develop something that maybe will help us to get nitrogen from a different place. But we need to do our part. When Aniceto says that God didn't allow it, created this limitation, and that one day it will change, this will change, and he says later on, perceiving our understanding, goodwill, and veneration for the divine laws, one day when God notices, right, that we are understanding the divine laws, the Lord will, at least in part, offer us a solution to the technical problem of securing the atmosphere's nitrogen. We will have this solution one day. When will it be? Will it fall from the sky and then we will find this parchment paper with God have written the formula for doing so? No. It's for us. When Aniceto says, for example, God will allow, right, will offer us a solution, is we will keep trying. We will keep pushing forward. We will keep trying to understand God's laws and this relationship, this symbiotic and graceful relationship that we need to have with nature so that we can help nature, thanking nature for the help that we are receiving and giving something back to nature that does not destroy it, but helps it find its own and more beautiful balance. Unfortunately, we're still not there. We are still taking a lot, and not giving it back. And we can clearly see these days, for example, with all this ice melting, with the global warming, that science shows that it's increasing. It's more and more. We all know that it's a cycle. It's a cycle. It will happen. We want the humans or not. It will happen. It is a cycle of life. What's happening is that it's coming and arriving much faster because of the amount, for example, of CO2 that we are producing. And maybe because of the amount of nitrogen that we are producing, and we are setting out to nature, and nature cannot deal with this amount of things that we are producing. Remember, when it comes to Earth, there's no throwing out trash, because we are throwing out trash where? On Earth, and Earth is where we live. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to throw out the trash. Where do we think that all this trash goes? It's still here in our house, in our home, if we think of Earth as our home. Oh, but the problem is far away. Is it really? Right? So it's something that we really need to stop thinking more and more about it, and be more conscious about our responsibility with our planet. But we need to understand that we don't need to condemn. We don't need to get into fights. We don't need to keep judging and condemning everybody. No. Everything has its path. We need to go our path, do our best, really strive to use the best we can the forces of nature that we have at our hands. One day we will, for example, love the earth, as he says, instead of wantonly exploiting it. And we will value the work of animals without slaughtering them, without killing them, without murdering them. One day. But if I cannot do this now, let's not, cry and despair on top of it. No, let's just start thinking about it and evolving our positions, evolving the way that we can deal with this. And because it's a matter of progress, it's a matter of time. If we keep fighting against it and thinking bad things about those people who do it, or those people who don't do nothing, then it's just another way of creating more destructive arguments, of sending out more destructive thoughts. No, let's get used to the idea that one day, hopefully, we will not need to destroy as much as we do today to live. But if I still can't live without my beef, without my fish, without my chicken, that's fine. Maybe we can eat a little less. If I eat 10 pounds, I don't know, a month, if I eat 9 pounds a month, it's already an improvement, right? If I eat and then I substitute this pound of meat for a pound of wheat, or for a pound of something that's not meat, for example, it will help. But it doesn't really matter, for example, if I substitute one bad thing for another bad thing, be it vegetal, be it fish, be it meat. It needs to come really from the inside. It really needs to come with the good intention and with the will of doing something. But not to become a sad person because of it. Not to become a person that's always trying to fight with everybody because of this. No. It's respecting one another. Respect ourselves. Respect nature. Respect our friends. And then one day we will live more naturally in this era that we are constructing, we are helping to build right now. Just like Aniceto says as well here. When that time of slaughtering, of abusing nature comes to pass, the slaughterhouse will be converted into a place of cooperation where people will help lower beings, and where those lower beings, in turn, will meet the needs of humans, and trees will live amidst the respect that is due to them. In that sublime era, industry will glorify the good, and that's when, once we understand that, we will have and we will be able to have better ways of producing stuff that we need for surviving in a material plane. Something that I forgot to mention is that Aniceto even mentions here, and you can go back and read the chapter or listen to it again, when Aniceto says that, even in No Solar, it's something that we still don't know how to do this. So even the discarnate ones who are living in a lighter atmosphere than we are living here while incarnate, we still don't have that. Why? Oh, it's not just because I died, not just because I discarnated, that now I know all the secrets of the universe. No, it is part of really that relationship, that true and sincere and powerful love relationship between me and the laws of nature that will allow us to really understand it and to have the ability of building something that is more natural to all of us. One day, and he goes on here, let us teach our brothers and sisters. And who is Aniceto talking about here? He is talking about those, hopefully, again, not us that are destroying Earth intently, even if we don't know, but with the idea of gaining instead of distributing or helping everybody else, or at least some of the people in our lives. It says, let us teach these brothers and sisters that life is not to be comprised of incessant robbery, where plants are made to damage the soil, where animals exterminate plants, and where people murder animals. Let's teach this, but first of all, let's learn this, that life is not to be comprised of incessant robbery, where plants are made to damage the soil, and where animals exterminate plants, and where people murder animals. Life, on the other hand, is an activity of divine sharing and generous cooperation. Sharing and cooperation. Everybody living together, doing the best we can. And we cannot disrupt life without causing serious damage. To the others? No. Serious damage to our own position as responsible and evolved creatures. We cannot disrupt life without disrupting our own life, causing serious damage to ourselves, even if we don't see it right now. But as we keep repeating, we will come back. And when we come back, we will suffer the consequences of what we are doing. So let's not condemn the others. Let's keep helping, because if we help them, we are helping ourselves. And if we are helping ourselves and we are helping them, we are helping everybody. We are building, we are constructing a better world for all of us. Let us not condemn. Let us always be of use. Everybody was deeply impressed. Aniceto falls silent and looks at the birds, the animals, and as if he was sending deep thoughts of love to them. He closes the book and says, we notice in Paul's letter that the creation anxiously awaits the cooperation of the incarnate children of God. Paul says to us that nature awaits for us, awaits for our cooperation. We agree, he continues, that the creatures of the lower kingdoms have borne the weight of great iniquities. We can see how much suffering we have caused nature. We have caused not only the animals, but also the plants, the fields, the forests. Let us continue to help them, but let us not get lost in vain contentions. Let's help those who take care of this part of the world, the ones who generate food for us, be it vegetables, be it meat, be it water. But let us not get lost in vain contentions. It doesn't help for us to keep fighting. No. Humans, we are waiting for them, for their spiritual manifestation also. We are waiting for their help. We need their help. So, we are here to help as well. Let's do what we can do. In this way, let us help everyone in the chapter of great understanding. So, instead of keep fighting who is right, who is wrong, let's help. Let's put our hands together to work to improve the world we live in, to improve the environment, to improve not only the physical environment of humankind, but also the mental environment of humankind. And then this gospel, this word in a rural setting, ends with Aniceto inviting us to help everyone. Let's not choose who to help. Let's help everyone that we can, with whatever power that we can, to improve the world we live in. And with this, hopefully, you feel inclined to help the world for at least one more week before we meet again, and then we charge up again to keep on going with our task of learning how to live better, how to make the world a better place for all of us. Thank you everyone for listening, and I sincerely hope that next week you are back here on Kardec Radio for another chapter of the Messengers in our home. Have a great week. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.